Welcome back, y'all, and in this lesson we are going to be creating the layout for the Motivate Me application. So to do that, let's go ahead and start by creating a new Xcode project. We'll make it a single view application and we're going to call it Motivate Me. Make sure all your settings look just like this, and let's go ahead and drop that in whatever folder you want. And to start things off, let's go ahead and create some better folder structure here. So we'll create a group here and we'll call it application, and we're going to drop the app and scene delegate into that folder. Then we're going to create another group and we're going to call it interfaces, and we're going to drop both of the storyboard files in there. And then we are going to create one more group and we're going to call it view controllers, and we'll go ahead and drop our single view controller file into there for now. Let's go ahead and reorder things a little bit to make a little bit more sense. And go ahead and make your folder structure look just like this. And then once you have that done, what we're going to do next is we're going to just go ahead and start by creating the UI for the application. Before we start to do that, let's go ahead and take a look at this screenshot here to kind of see what we're working with. So we're going to have this big label up here at the top that's going to say Motivate Me. We're going to have this really light gray background. Then we're going to have this white box right here that holds the actual quote and its background image along with the next button. And then down here at the bottom, we're going to have this little send notification bar, which, as we can see, obeys the safe area down here. So we're not getting that text and that button on top of the bar down here. So let's go ahead and get started by adding this label up here at the top, and we'll go ahead and get the quote here. And then towards the end of the application, we'll actually add this notification bar. So like I said, let's go ahead and add that label up here to the top of the view controller. And we are going to pin that 202020. And looks like Xcode's being a little quirky here and it's not letting me click on that label. See, sometimes we just got to restart Xcode. I've actually had this happen to me before. So if we just do a quick little restart, we should be able to click on that. And it looks like it's still wanting to be a little quirky. Let's try a full restart real quick. And it's still wanting to give me problems. Of course, it's not going to want to work. Okay, so actually I got it working now. Sometimes Xcode can just be a little cantankerous. As you can see there, that my identity inspector wasn't wanting to pop up. But actually what I had to do, I'm not sure if it was the restarting of Xcode or sometimes when the storyboard files are being a little quirky, if you just go to a different file and then come back to the storyboard, usually they'll do a reset and things will start to pop up again. So anyways, now that we've got that all working, let's go ahead and change the color of this label right here to black, keeping in mind that if we weren't to do that and we left it as the default color, that label would switch to white in dark mode, which is not what we're going for in this particular application. For this particular application, we want to make sure that it actually is black. So let's go ahead and give that a color of black, and then let's go ahead and change the font style to black, which in this case is for the weight, not the color. And then we'll give it a font size of 42. And then we're going to make this label say Motivate Me. And then for the background color here, as you remember seeing, it was like a light gray. Oh, wow, that opened up full screen. So let's go ahead and change the hex value there. And so you can go ahead and put in this hex color right here. E9, E9, EA is the color that we're going to use for the background. Or you could pick any light gray that you want. I just found that this one looks pretty good. So now that we've got that set up, the next thing that we're going to want to do is add that white box right here that the notification is going to go inside of. So to do that, let's go ahead and add a UI view to the view controller here. And we'll go ahead and stretch that out a little bit and let's go ahead and pin this, or sorry, we're going to actually center this vertically first, and then we're going to pin this 20 pixels from the left and 20 pixels from the right. And it's going to complain here because it doesn't know how tall we want it to be. Well, in this particular case, we're going to want this view to actually wrap its child views. So to get this to actually have the intrinsic height that we want it to have, we need to go ahead and add its children items first. So let's go ahead and add a UI view. And we're going to give this UI view, actually we're going to pin it 10 pixels from the top of its parent, 10 pixels from the left, and 10 pixels from the right. And then we're going to give it an aspect ratio constraint. And that aspect ratio constraint is going to be a square, so we're going to want it to be 1 to 1. So again, we're going to want this view to be 10 from the top, 10 from the left, 10 from the right, and then also be a perfect square. But it's still complaining because it still doesn't know how tall it is because we don't have any constraints to the bottom that's pulling it in. So to do that, we're going to want to add our UI button that is going to say next question, or sorry, next quote. So now that we've got that on here, we're going to want to pin that 10 pixels from the top, or sorry, from the bottom of that square view, and then 10 from the left, 10 from the right, and 10 from the bottom. And then we're going to give it a height of 40. Now that we've done that, it knows how tall we want it to be by virtue of those two things. So now that we have that done, let's go ahead and give this button a color to make things a little bit easier to look at. And we're going to give it a color of, let's go ahead and give it this system red color right here. And then we'll give it a text color of white. And then for me, I'm going to want to make this font size 16, and we'll make it bold. And then we're going to make it say next quote. Okay, now that we have that, what we're going to want to do is, if you remember, there was an image view in the background of this square view right here. So let's go ahead and add that right now. We're going to want to add an image view to this square view. So if I drag that in, looks like it's being a little slow right now. Come on, Xcode. There we go. Now we're going to want to pin that to all of the edges of that parent view. So now we can kind of see this thing starting to take shape a little bit. If we come back over here and we take a look, we're kind of getting really close to where we want to be. So we've got that now. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to actually put the label right here along with the picture of the author and the author's name itself. But if we can see here, the whole thing is centered inside of this square view. So we're going to take advantage one more time of those intrinsic constraints of the parent. So to do that, what we'll do, let me close out of this image real quick. Cool. Now let's go ahead and add another UI view, which is going to sit on top of the image view. So if we see over here in our hierarchy, this view is sitting just right on top of the image view. We actually want the background of this to be clear though, because we want to see through and see that image behind the text. So now that we have that, let's stretch this out a little bit. And we're going to want to also center this vertically inside of the container. And then we're going to want to pin this 10 from the left and 10 from the right. But it still doesn't know how tall it is because we haven't added the child items yet. So let's go ahead and add that label. This is going to be the quote label. And we're going to pin that 0 from the top, 0 from the left, and 0 from the right, so it can go all the way to the edges of those that box, sorry. And then we're going to want to add that UI image view. And this is going to be really small. We don't need this to be very big. And actually, we can see here that it didn't put it inside of that view, so I'm going to go ahead and drag it in. So we should have the view that sits on top of the image view, and then that should have a label and an image view at this point. So then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to pin that 20, I think it was actually 30 from the bottom of that label. And then, we're not going to want any constraints to the sides, just 30 pixels from the top. And then once we have that, we're going to want to center it horizontally in this container so that image can sit right there. And then lastly, we're going to want to give this a width of 30 and a height of 30. So the only last thing that we need to do to get this thing to actually fit with its size is we're going to want to put one last label below that image view, making sure that it's looking like this right now. So we have label, image view, label. And then we're going to want to pin that 10 pixels from the bottom of the image view, and then 0 from the left, 0 from the right, and 0 from the bottom. And now once I add those four constraints, we should see this parent view kind of take shape. Okay, now that we have that, let's go ahead and center our text for the quote, and we'll center our text for the author. And for now, let's go ahead, just so we can see what's going on here. Let's put author name, and let's put quote text so that we can see the difference between the two. So we're kind of seeing what this looks like now. It's definitely starting to take shape. The last thing that we're going to want to do for the layout until we actually start hooking things up is we're going to want to add those rounded edges to the corner of everything. Because if we come back over here, we can see that everything has a rounded corner of 5 pixels. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to take advantage of the UI view extension. I think we actually talked about this in a previous module. So let's create another group here. Let's call it extensions. And let's go ahead and create a new file. We're going to want to call it UI view. And we're going to want to paste this code right here. So we've seen this before, but just to reiterate in case you didn't see this module, basically what we're doing is we're creating an extension of a UI view so that we can add additional properties to the storyboard or to the property inspector, so we've got more things that we can work with. If you'll remember, by default inside the storyboard, you don't have access to corner radius or border width or border color or anything like that to edit UI views, so we're going to want to add those by using IB Inspectables. And again, this may just be a refresher for a lot of you, but for anybody that didn't see it, an IB Inspectable, again, is just a property that we can edit inside the storyboard, and it requires us to have a getter and a setter to use inside of an extension. And basically the getter is just a way of us returning the value of this property in case we need it. And then the setter is just saying, okay, anytime you assign a new value to this corner radius, what do you want me to do with it? And so in this particular case, if you set the corner radius property, we're going to want to set the layer.corner radius of this UI view to the new value that we just passed in, along with setting a Boolean for the masks to bounds property if necessary, if the new value is greater than 0. So for this particular application, we're going to want to add shadows along with borders and corner radiuses. So this is a nice little extension that we can add to our application. So if you have this from a previous app, go ahead and paste it in. This should look pretty familiar. If not, I'm going to zoom out real quick and give you a chance to copy what I have here. So go ahead and pause the video if you need to copy this. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and then you'll need this stuff right here as well. Okay, cool. So now that we have that done, let's jump back into the storyboard here. Let's tackle this top view real quick. We're going to give this a corner radius of 5. We're going to want to give the button also a corner radius of 5. And then we're going to want to give this image view component a corner radius of 5. And then the last thing we're going to want to do is give this image view a corner radius of 15 so that it appears to be a perfect circle. And if we go ahead and run this application, we should start to see our UI coming a little bit together. Okay, so yeah, you can see these corner radiuses starting to take shape. Now the problem is we don't have that image set in the background yet, so you can't see that, and obviously the author image isn't set, but we're going to be doing that in the next lessons, so I think this is a good place to stop, and we'll pick up in the next one. See you in the next video.